Welcome to the next judge training video for the Pi Kappa Delta National Tournament. This video will talk about the two special events of interviewing and student congress. We did a separate video for these events because they function a little bit differently than everything else at the tournament, but I think it's pretty straightforward. But that's what this video will talk about. We'll cover the specifics of each of these special events, so what is unique about interviewing and what is unique about student congress. So starting with interviewing. Interviewing is exactly what it sounds like. It's an event that gives students practice at applying for a job. In this case, they're interviewing for an entry-level position at a medium-sized public relations firm in the Midwest. The reasoning behind that is that anyone with speech and debate experience has at least some work in public relations, or at least experience they can talk about. So the event is open to all competitors of all majors and all ages and all demographic groups. So there's really, it's a wide-ranging position that's open for anyone. The first two rounds of the event, the students will interview each other. So one round the student will be interviewed, and the next round they'll interview somebody else. So that will shift between the two rounds. And then the third round they'll have their resumes evaluated by the judge. So really that's what we're focusing on here, developing those interviewing skills as a professional development tool for students. So as I mentioned, for the first two rounds, the contestants are going to gather in a room and be divided into groups of 8 competitors. That room is Bowman's Den, the food court on campus, which is located on the campus map on your tournament booklet. So if you need help finding it, just ask, but it's right down the hill from Whitehall and from Patterson Office Tower. One round, 4 of the competitors in that section will interview, the other 4 will be interviewed. And then the next round they will switch partners. But the same group of students will gather for both rounds, and the ballot allows you to evaluate both students at the same time. So you can write about the questions and the responses on the same ballot. And then we copy that ballot so each student gets one. The interviewer will assume the role of a manager, so they'll pretend they work at the firm to start asking questions of the candidate. And then, of course, the interviewee will pretend that they're interested in the position. They will be in that same room together, and in this case, they're all going to be in one large room, so they'll be at a table together. And those who are scheduled, they'll be able to actually stand around the table and wait for their chance to be interviewed, the competitors that are not going right away. But the interviews will all gather together around that section. You'll get a nice little table tree with a number on it, and you can choose your table, and the students will come find you if you end up judging interviewing. Each interview pair should last for about 8 to 10 minutes. Your job is to provide time signals to the competitors so you can let them know how many minutes have passed or how many minutes remain. That's totally up to you. And then on the ballot, you'll rank the interviewers against each other and the interviewees against each other. So the people asking questions will be ranked against each other versus the people answering questions. And then things to look for in this round or in this event are professionalism. How polished are they? Can they articulate, fulfill their roles? Is defined by the ballot. Are they just good at asking questions as an interviewer? Do they have a creative way of responding to questions? All of the things that you'd look for if you were hiring a new employee. And as the judge, you're not actually involved in the interviewing process. You're just there to observe and write comments and give time signals. Now for the third round, if you get scheduled to judge the third round of interviewing, you actually won't have any competitors that round. Instead, you'll get a stack of ballots or a stack of resumes with your ballot, and you'll go through and write comments on each of the resumes and then on the ballot itself, talking about was this a clear resume? Did it clearly articulate what it needed to? Was spelling, grammar, punctuation correct? And then you'll rank them on their effectiveness. So it's up to you then to kind of judge which resumes were most effective at applying for that position, or which ones were clearly presented, what ones were the most appealing as resumes. So for the third round, you just rank the resumes. There are no competitors there. You can just find a nice place to sit and fill out your ballots. So as mentioned, with interviewing, it's really about real life experience. Student Congress is also exactly what it sounds like. So for Student Congress, competitors will gather in a room and they'll actually act out as though they are a mock legislative branch, and they'll work at passing legislation. But just looking at the event description, each session will be divided into a house of no more than 25 students. So since we have about 100 people in the event, we've actually gone with 5 chambers. So there'll be 5 different rooms of Student Congress going on at one time. Which if you're tired of the gridlock in Congress, imagine having 5 branches. But if you're one of the judges for that round, Your job is to go in and decide which speakers were most effective in the round. And effective means, did they shape the debate? Did they actually change the way the dialogue was happening? Did they make arguments that intrigued you and persuaded you? And it's your job to go through and rank and rate all of the speakers on their ability to advocate and understand the different issues. You don't need to have a firm understanding of parliamentary procedure. There are other people there who will take care of that for you. You're just there to look at who is most persuasive and effective in the round. So as mentioned, your goal is to identify and score the speakers that most influence the course of the debate. So who moved the argument along best, who made the most compelling points. They should be your top speakers in the round. The presiding officer, which is one of the student who will be in charge of the chamber for that round, will handle all the procedural questions, so you shouldn't have to fulfill that role. The students will take care of that themselves. And you can include the presiding officer in your list of most effective speakers if you think they did a really good job as the presiding officer and being involved in the debate themselves. The students should identify themselves at the beginning of each speech. That way you can easily identify them and have the right ballot out to write comments about their speeches. Again, you're just there really to observe, so you don't have to worry about weighing in. They're just doing that for clarity for you, so you know which ballot to pull out to write comments on. And then the round will move from one piece of legislation to the next. So they'll consider different legislation that they've already written and seen. So there's a packet of bills that they've read through, and they're going to argue and discuss and debate the ones that are most important and most influential for the issues that they're concerned about. But that's your goal, is just to see who's most effective in the round. So a couple of judging tips just to consider with any event at the tournament. Remember, you can focus on both the delivery aspects of their speeches as well as the content. So were they making good arguments? Did they speak effectively? You'll want to write your comments on the ballots during the speeches. There's only a little bit of time at the end of the round to write your comments before you'll need to be back to the ballot table for your next set of ballots. So you'll want to write those comments during their speeches. Of course, focus on suggestions for improvement as well as other areas where they're doing things well. What do you like? What do you not like? And why? And lastly, trust your impressions. If you're paying attention and doing your best to follow what's being said, both in an interview and in student congress, you're going to have a good idea of what you liked and what you didn't like, and your job is just to justify that on the ballot, to explain it to the students why you preferred one speech over another or one speaker over another. But really, you're the judge, your impressions, you're capable of making those sort of assessments based off of your own experiences and your own instincts. So this video described the special events of interviewing in Congress. If you have any questions, of course, let us know. Both of these are fun events to judge. They're a little bit non-traditional from a speech point of view, but they're a lot of fun to judge and really enjoyable to get to watch the students interact with each other, just as really there as an observer more than anything else.